As a young teenager, my mum and dad would send me off to Christian camps, and so I had some really good seed planted in my life. But as a teenager and one of 10 children, I got quite rebellious in my teenage years. I left home. I'd met Philip, who was not my parents' first choice for a future husband. I'm still debating to this day, and it goes as an ongoing debate between us, whether I fell in love with him first or his motorbike. And I do sometimes think it might have been the motorbike. It was around probably a couple of years after we had met that we had started to get very heavily into the drug scene. So we had friends and associates that were in the Hells Angels and the Gypsy Jokers. Most of our weekends were spent down at King's Cross, where we had a very profitable business selling drugs on the streets there, and most of our clients were around the bike groups. It wasn't surprising when eventually we were noticed by the local police. My mum and dad were visiting from the Hunter Valley at the time, and they came to visit their first grandchild in our house. And I'm watching out the window and I seen men in suits coming up the driveway, and I realised this is not good. One of the things that happened that day was incredibly significant for me later on in hindsight. My mum, who did not like Philip at all, and once they took him into that bedroom where they were interrogating him, and Mum had watched every cop show on television and she knew what was going on behind that door and she wasn't having any of it. But I watched her stand up, she stood up, she banged on the door and she said, "If you lay one hand on that man's body, I am going to let the whole world know about it." She didn't even like him. But that was, for me, in hindsight, the first demonstration of grace that I had seen. She didn't like him, but I loved him. He belonged to me, and so she was therefore committed to standing up and defending him. Anyway, we got busted and we thought, maybe it's time we got out of Sydney. Maybe we should relocate, and Mum and Dad are in the Hunter Valley, so let's go there. Very quickly fell into the same pattern. We got to know the local bike group, we got to know who dealt drugs in that area. We had no power to change our lives. We couldn't do it on our own. Anyway, so Wendy started to go to church, and then my other brothers and sisters, who all lived around us locally, also began to go to church. And Phil and I looked at each other and we just thought, what is going on with this family? That was fine until my sister Wendy started to come down and speak to me. She started to say to me, "You need Jesus." And I'd say, "No, I don't. I'm pretty good. There are a lot worse people than me that have done a lot worse than me. I'm sure God is not going to send me to hell just because I don't go to church." So she kept coming and she kept nagging. And in the end, I agreed to go to church with her simply to shut her up. So there's a lot to be said for persistence. We would turn up every night at that crusade. We did that for a couple of nights, but we were stoned off our eyeballs. And the bike, we'd rock up on the Harley downstairs. It would be tied to the post. We would walk up the stairs. We looked like we needed to be saved. We were messy, druggy bikies, and it was obvious. But what was astounding to me was, as I walked up the stairs in that church, the people at the top of the stairs that were greeting people coming through the door hugged us. That shocked me because we weren't huggable people. Phil had knives hanging off his belt. He was long hair down to here, and I was messy. So to be welcomed like that into church for us was astounding. To sit and listen to God speaking to us, because Barry Smith always looked like he was looking straight at us and talking straight to us. And we were the last couple on the last night, on the last altar call. And as we came to the altar, I remember praying the prayer, "Jesus, just come into my heart, forgive me." And I knew that I needed forgiveness. I knew. And as I said that prayer, I felt the weight, and it's called the weight of sin, but I literally felt it roll off my shoulders. And I felt like I was just lifted off the ground, floating. It felt so light and so real. And God, instead of being all the way out there, was suddenly right here in front of me. We've been walking with God now for 30 years. God could not have given me a better partner to walk the journey with. And He knew what He was doing when He brought us through together. Freedom is something that we have to sow into for ourselves. We have to sow into our lives with the Word of God, and understanding that the freer we get, the freer other people around us get, because the greater the influence God has on me, the greater the influence Christ in me has on the environment around me. And so we've been journeying together with Him for a long time, and I wouldn't trade it for all of the drugs in China and all of the bikes in America. So those issues for us are settled forever. God's good.
Yeah.